The finals of the LFA middleweight title tournament, 2 title fights in Invicta. Cyborg returned to the Bellator cage to defend her women's featherweight title, and in the UFC Octagon, fighting Garbrandt threw down in an awesome main event. Welcome to Cage Minds MMA show. Hi, I'm Micah Frankel. Finals of the LFA middleweight title tournament headlined LFA 108. Josh Frem versus Gregory Rodriguez, and it was Josh Frem coming out early, moving in and out, working his striking and landing. But then once they got tied up in the clinch, it was Rodriguez landing a big overhand right inside the clinch that sent Frem stumbling. After that, Rodriguez had the confidence to start letting his right hands go, and they would pay off in a big way. Jab, right hand, first round knockout, new middleweight champion in the LFA. And spoiler alert, he very quickly has inked his contract with the UFC, so the title is once again vacant. But what a big victory it was on Friday night. We also had a couple of great finishes from prospects coming out of the lab. They're nicknamed the Bash Brothers. We'll start out with Clay Carpenter. Drops down and takes home a knee bar finish, able to get behind his opponent, then took home the leg, a very technical submission. Then we saw Bryce Meredith. He gets dropped by Stephen Merle. Merle goes for a guillotine choke. Meredith is able to survive. Once on top, the wrestler ground and pounds his way to the finish. That was the best stuff that we saw at LFA 108 on that main card on UFC Fight Pass. The early prelims that were there was a solo one on Facebook, and you saw Keenan Jackson, now his second professional victory with the decision win. We saw the power punching come through. Bellator 258, the main event, Chris Cyborg defending the featherweight title in a rematch against Leslie Smith. 5 years ago, Smith had welcomed Cyborg to the octagon and only lasted 80 seconds with Cyborg after her ear was busted apart. This time it went much further, and we will herald Smith for her toughness, go 5 rounds, and we saw a totally different Chris Cyborg than we had seen before. Much more tactical, much more methodical, much more composed, working behind the jab, working on her speed and boxing attributes, going with combinations, ripping off a couple kicks, and then we even saw a couple takedowns, a diverse game plan from Cyborg, who would get the finish with just 9 seconds on the clock. So Holly Holmes was able to make it all 5 rounds, and at least Smith this time would get into the 5th round. That close before the finish, but still the big right hands, the power punching. It wasn't the one shot, devastated, ran you over like a mag truck Cyborg that we've been used to. It was a different monster, a much more methodical, calculating, technical monster who was able to implement all of her skills and still get the finish. In the co-main event, Darrion Caldwell, the former bantamweight champion, after the featherweight Grand Prix, returning to 135 pounds and getting his takedowns. Early on, Caldwell was able to split Higo open, turned him into a bloody mess. That was in the first round. But the second and third rounds, when Caldwell would get his takedowns, you'd see a lack of offense, a lack of aggression, a lack of wanting to pass and get the finish. And Higo would outwork Caldwell from the bottom in the second round. In the third round, did enough to fight off some takedowns, and still just in awkward positions when Caldwell would be looking to grapple, Higo would be sneaking in some strikes. That's apparently what the judges were favoring, giving. It was controversial, but a split decision went in the favor of Leandro Higo, evening things up. And one other fight on that main card to focus on, Austin Vanderford remains unbeaten, 11-0 now, out-wrestling Fabian Edwards. Edwards, in the final seconds, is able to do the most significant damage of the fight with an elbow, pushing Vanderford off him and bringing the elbow up, which cut Austin down the middle of his head and turned the canvas and both fighters into just a complete bloody mess. But that was after 3 rounds of the grappling totally being in favor of Vanderford. 11-0 overall, 2-0 in Bellator. And it's a little crazy to think, with that number 3 ranking coming into the fight next to his name, and Anatoly Tokov already being announced as the next challenger for Gegard Mousasi, that win for Vanderford almost assures him a title opportunity. I don't think that's anything that we could believe so soon into his MMA career. I think in this fight we saw some nice body kicks, but we're still looking at a one-dimensional fighter looking to implement his grappling and still very early on in his striking growth. It would be a bad matchup, I think, for Vanderford to go against a Mousasi who is such a veteran and has seen everything there is to offer. But that's apparently what that middleweight fight left us with, is Vanderford being right in position to get a title shot. A little hard to believe. The prelims, my gosh, was there some great stuff on the prelims, including Syed Awad back against the wall, welcoming former CES champion Nate Andrews to the Bellator cage, and Awad put on one of the best performances I've seen from him in years, being composed, looking for his right hand, and letting it go, connecting at will, and scoring not just one, not just two, but 3 knockdowns, and the third one looking over at Big Dan like, do you really want me to do this again? And look at how hurt Andrews is. Andrews was definitely out, not there, somewhere in La La Land, not fully aware of what was going on. A stellar performance from Awad. That right hand was devastating. We also look at the prelims, and there was an awesome submission. Love the leg locks, and it was a heel hook finish from Avi Gonzalez, who improves to 6-0. Dangerous young Israeli to pay attention to in the lightweight division. And early on in the prelims, making another statement. He's already there, ranked in the top 10 in the heavyweight division. And this scary, scary man keeps developing and improving. Davion Franklin does it again. It's a knockout in 2 minutes and 2 seconds of Tyler King, letting his hands go. The right hand coming around the guard started off the damage. You saw a step in left hook. You even saw an attempt at a flying knee that I swear partially landed before the right hand started being let go again, clipping King, dropping to the ground, and one more strike was all she wrote. So now 3-0, and with the ranking next to his name, Davion Franklin, a bad man that you should be following. Invicta FC, their debut on Access TV. It was event 44 in the promotion's history. 2 title fights in the main event. It was a battle for the vacant flyweight championship. Karina Rodriguez against Diana Turquato, and it was a close one. The unanimous decision after 5 rounds of what was a glorified kickboxing match. That was a beautiful back and forth. Rodriguez with her boxing and Turquato using a mix of Muay Thai skills, implementing a bit more kicks. This fight really never went into the clinch. It was more of a glorified kickboxing bout, but after 5 rounds, the decision goes in the favor of Rodriguez, so she becomes the first fighter from Mexico to win a championship. It was somewhat controversial. You could see a couple of the rounds being split up between the judges. Love that live scoring from the Kansas City Commission, where we actually know what's happening throughout the rounds. It was interesting to see what rounds the kicks to finish the combinations versus how they felt the Rodriguez jab was breaking down Turquato, what was favored in what round. Going into the 5th, there was only a single judge that had it 2-2. That's how I felt the fight was going. The first round, Turquato, I thought was doing more damage than you saw for 2 rounds. Rodriguez really find her stride, and again in the 4th round you saw Turquato be able to get those combinations off, and the scorecards are all over the place. We got 5 rounds to none, we got 3 rounds to 2, and we got 4 rounds to 1, but they can all agree that Karina Rodriguez are in that flyweight championship. In the co-main event, Alicia Zapatella made the first title defense of the Invicta Atomweight title against Jessica Doblani, and this one even closer. Again, goes all 5 rounds, all 25 minutes. For the most part, what I saw was Delblani pushing forward and landing with combinations, working her combinations. You did see Zappitella be able to find a home for a big overhand right, and was consistently pressing the action when she was looking for her takedowns, also mixing in the strikes in those transition moments, never letting Delblani get away even though she would stuff the takedowns without taking some damage. The split decision goes for the champion, and still, Alicia Zappitella, that was a close one. That's what a split decision means. Really could have gone either way. That takes us to the UFC Apex in Las Vegas, Nevada for the UFC Fight Night, which was on ESPN+. Top 5 bantamweights, former champion Cody Garbrandt, Rob Font. What we knew it was going to be was a striking matchups between two MMA fighters who excel in pugilism. Font, with the 6-inch reach advantage, would feed Garbrandt a steady diet of jabs, and No Love, while heavy hitting and able to crack Font with some hooks, was unable to consistently get on the inside. The volume, the damage, blood coming from the nose of Garbrandt, that was all caused from the activity and the jab of Font, who never took the pedal off the metal. Early on, you could see No Love, Garbrandt, making an attempt to utilize his wrestling background and try to take the fight to the ground, but was unable to hold Font down in that position, and it seemed to actually tax the cardio of Garbrandt more than wear down Font, where Garbrandt, he's not known for using that wrestling inside of the octagon. He's known for letting his hands go. Tried the wrestling, went back to trying to let his hands go, and unfortunately couldn't find a way to get on the inside. We saw his knockout against Rafael Sunsao, where it was basically the right hook coming from his shoelaces. Font was hip to that maneuver and never got overzealous, never got out of position, and never rushed in and overcommitted to a strike. Very technical performance. Font even said afterwards he knows that he still has room for improvement, so I don't know if that helps his stock for what's going on in the championship picture. Aljamain Sterling is sidelined. Peter Yan wants to fight Sterling rather than be involved in an interim title fight, which could be a possibility against Rob Font, or could be a possibility because in July it looks like TJ Dillashaw will be fighting his former teammate Corey Sandhagen. So UFC is trying to make their way through what they believe is the top 6 bantamweights that they have on the roster. Just a little bit of injury, a little bit of confusion. Hopefully they're making their way there. Rob Font has jumped his name in there, but maybe without that finish, it stopped him from leaping over Dillashaw and Sandhagen. Well, more confusing title picture comes after what happens in the co-main event. The women's strawweight title, we felt like we were going to get a number 1 contender after Yan Xiaonan versus Carla Esparza, and this one was in dominant fashion that the former Invicta first ever UFC Women's Strawweight Champion, Carla Esparza, just completely took care of Yan Xiaonan, took her out behind the woodshed, and just beat her down. From the opening whistle, it was Esparza rushing in, looking to get the fight to the ground. It looked like Xiaonan was going to be able to stuff and disengage from the first takedown, but the second entry, the chain wrestling of Esparza was too much, getting Yan to the ground and just unloading with some of the most vicious, devastating ground and pound that we've ever seen from Esparza. Elbows that would bust open Yan and getting to that oh so lovely crucifix position, forcing the stoppage in the second round. Couldn't be more dominating, couldn't be more emphatic, couldn't have been more one-sided. But apparently UFC President Dana White has been non-committal. Options for the champion Rose Namajunas seem to be Yan Xiaonan, Carla Esparza, former champions Zhang Weili, and even Joanna Jędrzejczyk wanted to throw her name into the hat. Joanna 0-2 against Rose Namajunas. That's probably not going to happen. Zhang Weili, well, she did win the title and defended it against Joanna. It wasn't the most illustrious title reign we've seen in the women's strawweight division. That was Joanna. Joanna has the most title defenses. But when you look at Esparza, it's a 5-fight win streak. Yes, I know 3 of them were really close. It's part of the reason why I thought Yao Xiaonan would win this fight, because Esparza had won 3 of 4, 2 split decisions and a majority decision. They were oh so close. This one, emphatic fashion. This one, devastating. This one, gruesome. What more would Esparza have to do, and what is the opportunity for Zhang Weili to have earned that rematch? Well, that becomes a little more hairy and quite possibly political, as the UFC is still trying to keep all of their international partners happy. And in China, it would have been a big deal to either have Zhang Weili rematch or for Yan Xiaonan to become the #1 contender. With a 6-fight win streak, she was right in prime place to get that title fight, but couldn't get by Esparza. For the UFC, it's bigger business if it's Zhang or it's Yan that gets this next title fight, but it makes all the sense in the world, and she earned it in the cage for that opportunity to go to Carla Esparza. Also on the card, there were some beautiful finishes. Let's talk about the best knockout on the card. That was courtesy of Bruno Silva, who put the right overhand on Victor Rodriguez and put him out. It was a right hand, a knee from the clinch. Devastating stuff. And that's 2 knockouts in 2 months for the surging flyweight Bruno Silva. Also in the flyweight division, and I wouldn't mind seeing Bruno Silva throw down with this guy next, it's David Dvorak. Dvorak, on about 48 hours notice, submits Juan Camilo Herdores, who he had previously trained with. Dvorak is able to rock Juan with a right hand as Juan gets in on the takedown. In the mess of bodies, Dvorak transitions to the back, getting his left arm under the throat of Herdores, and then the one-arm rear naked choke. For this week's fight announcements in the UFC, Maki Pitolo is out, and Dusko Tortovich will now be fighting Gregory Rodriguez. I told you that LFA champion had already inked his UFC contract. Alexio De Sirico is also hit the injured list, and Roman Dazili will be facing Loreto Starpoli. That one is in the middleweight division, and those are both middleweight bouts for June 5th. In a welterweight addition to the UFC Fight Night on June 19th, Tim the Dirty Bird Means will be taking on Britt Danny Roberts. UFC 264 on July 10th has had a pair of additions. In middleweights, you're going to be seeing Alan Amadovsky against Hugh Yaozong. And in the welterweight division, number 13 ranked contender Sean Brady is going to be welcoming former lightweight contender Kevin Lee up to 170 pounds. For the UFC Fight Night on July 17th, Daniel D-Rock Rodriguez is going to be taking on Akbar Nurmagomedov. Corey Sandhagen versus TJ Dillashaw matchup has been rebooked for the main event of the UFC Fight Night on July 24th. And in the featherweight division, Darren Elkins is going to meet Derek Minner on the same card. For the UFC Fight Night on July 31st, we have a women's strawweight edition. Gloria DePaulo is going to be taking on Cheyenne Bays. You have Mornay Lazar meeting Nicastolo in a welterweight contest. And then also in women's strawweight action, Isleta Nunes is out, and Ashley Yoder is jumping in to take on Jin Yu Fry. In the works for UFC 265 on August 7th, former featherweight champion Jose Aldo. It looks like he's going to be paired with Pedro Munoz in the bantamweight division. In middleweight action, Dolce Ongbe is going to be taking on Marc-Andre Barrett. Leroy Murphy versus Charles Jourdain in featherweight action, and Ji Yoon Kim versus Molly McCann in women's flyweight action. Those 3 fights are all slated for August 14th. In welterweight action, Sasha Platnikov is going to be taking on Razim Brahima. In bantamweight action, Brian Keller faces Domingo Pilarte. In lightweight action, Clay Guida meets Mark Madsen. All 3 of those are going to be happening at the UFC Fight Night on August 21st. And then for UFC 266 on September 4th, we have women's flyweight action. Erin Blanchfield is going to be taking on Sarah Alpar. And in the lightweight division, Uros Medic versus Jalen Foot. And for Bellator 262 on July 16th, the main event is going to see the Bellator women's flyweight title on the line as unbeaten Brazilian champion Juliana Velasquez faces Dutch challenger, former kickboxing world champion Denise Kielholtz. Let's preview this weekend's action. Friday morning, you have one championship full blast from Singapore, MMA, kickboxing, and Muay Thai action all on this card. Friday night, UFC Fight Pass, aka 15, and Cage Fury 96. Cage Fury 96 main event heavyweight title fight. You're going to be seeing the champion Jamel Jones defending against PFL vet Rakeem Cleveland. And then Saturday, you get Cage Fury 97, Elise Reed defending the women's strawweight title against Contender Series vet Hillary Rose. Also on Friday, on Fox Deportes and Fox Sports 2, you have XFC. Now, a little confusion on the website. I'm not really sure if this is XFC Young Guns 2 or XFC 44. I've seen it listed both ways, but it is available for our viewing this weekend. Main event, it's a bantamweight contest. 2 UFC vets. Andrei Sukhomtov, former CES champion, has 8 wins by knockout, taking on tough Mexico alum Jose Quinones. He has 4 wins in the UFC, a more than willing striker. Lightweight bout is the co-main event. Kurt Holoba versus Scott Hudson. That one is an XFC lightweight tournament semi-final. Holoba won his quarterfinal bout with a 30-second knockout. Hudson a 5-fight win streak and a late notice replacement. In the welterweight semifinals, you get Ryan Dixon, who had an RNC in just 54 seconds in his quarterfinal fight against Bobby Nash, who's won his last 2 by knockout in the first round since leaving the UFC. You also have in the welterweight division, the Rue Burley versus Bradley Dizer. That is going to be your other semifinal. And in the lightweight division, it's Tom O'Connor versus the Monte Robinson. And a special heavyweight bout on the card. You can see former LFA heavyweight champion Brett Martin against Marino Eatman. And Martin, probably the best unsigned heavyweight not in the UFC or Bellator or the PFL. No reason why he's not there. A couple strange circumstances of no contest and a disqualification led to his LFA championship victory. And this is a guy that's just had some hard luck where opponents and COVID have taken away big opportunities. Also gotta point out Austin Bashi is going to be in action, 2-0 right now, a talented young wrestler, and he's definitely going to be one of the faces of the XFC Young Gun series. And on short notice, it's going to be Ali Omar against Dennis Hughes Jr. I've got to see Omar in person and interview him before. A talented young striker who also has a submission game, and I mean powerful kicks coming out of a large lightweight. So there's a lot to look forward to on a UFC-less weekend. Watch some Fight Pass, check out the XFC, maybe even enjoy the outdoors. Check out CageMinds.com. That's the website. Join us on social media. On Facebook, it's Cage Minds Combat Sports News. On Twitter, it's at Cage Minds MMA. Over there on Instagram, it's at Cage Minds _CSN. And wherever you listen to podcasts, you can find Micah Frankel's Cage Minds, where I get a lot more in-depth into my opinions on a lot of these pressing matters in the MMA world. Thanks for watching.